Hello, my name is Azarine, and this is my channel, Talk Fast, where I talk about fast things, aka motorsport. Right now, I want to introduce you all to my new series called So You Want to Get into F1, where I explain all the basic rules and regulations of Formula One, how to get into it, who the drivers are, what the teams are. The first episode of So You Want to Get into F1 will be about the basic rules and regulations of the sport, how it's run, what they're competing for, and basically what's happening. So Formula One is a worldwide racing series. They race in countries such as Japan, China, Australia, Brazil, Mexico, America, England, Italy, Monaco, so on and so forth. Essentially, the only place that doesn't have a Formula One race is Africa. The beautiful, beautiful country of Rwanda is trying to host a Formula One race. They put in a bid at the end of 2024, so we'll see how that goes. But right now, I want to get into how Formula One is run. So, in Formula One, or essentially the FIA, there's a president that serves Formula One. His name is Stefano Domenicali, and then the FIA is run by Mohammed bin Salim, MBS for short. These two people essentially help to consolidate the rules of the sport and the regulations of the sport. In future episodes, we will get into the lore and the mystique of both Stefano and MBS. The FIA and the governing body of Formula One isn't as, I guess, clean as we would expect. Teams and drivers. As of right now, there are 20 drivers and 10 teams in Formula One, meaning 2 drivers per team. Within the sporting code of F1, however, there is an allotment for 12 total teams or 24 drivers, which is how we see the Cadillac team joining F1 in 2026. And they will be the 11th team, aka 22 drivers on the grid. What are they competing for? Each team is competing for what is called the Constructors' Championship, which is comprised of points won by their 2 drivers, and then those drivers are competing for what is called the Drivers' Championship. So yes, there are 2 individual championships happening within Formula One. All the constructors will receive prize money based on their standings at the end of the year. So the team that won first will receive the most amount of money, and the team that ends in last will receive the least amount of money. Essentially, how that worked is McLaren, they won last year. They received the most amount of money. Kick Sauber, they lost. They received the least amount of money. So while the constructors are competing for their championship and the drivers are competing for their championship, the prize money is only awarded to the constructors, and usually within the team's allotment for points or victories is given to the drivers based on their performance within the team. How are the points decided? Obviously, winning the race gives you the most amount of points. In first place, you receive 25 points. In second place, you receive 18 points. Third place, you receive 15 points. That's essentially the podium. Fourth place is 12. Fifth is 10th, so on and so forth. Until 10th place, you receive 1 point. Only the top 10 finishers will receive points, and the bottom 10 receive no points. So let's do a quick introduction to the drivers and the teams that are within Formula One. I'm going to be talking about them based on the championship standings from the 2024 season. That is how I'll be introducing them to you all, in case you were wondering. So in first, we have McLaren F1 team with Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri as their drivers. Ferrari with Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton as their drivers. Red Bull with Max Verstappen and Yuki Tsunoda. Mercedes with George Russell and Andrea Kimi Antonelli. Aston Martin with Fernando Alonso and Lance Stroll. Alpine with Pierre Gasly. Franco Colapinto, but formerly Jack Doohan. Haas with Ollie Bearman and Esteban Ocon. Racing Bulls with Isaac Hadjar and Liam Lawson. Williams with Alex Albon and Carlos Sainz. And lastly, Kick Sauber with Nico Hülkenberg and Gabriel Bortoleto. In 2026, we'll see Cadillac F1 join the grid. However, they have not announced any driver, not one, not two. So we are still awaiting that. Now, how to watch Formula One. The sport takes place over the course of a weekend. I would say it starts on Thursday with Media Day. That's when the teams and the drivers enter the paddock. They talk about how the race went for them previously, what they learned, how they're going to bring that into this current race. They discuss upgrades. They discuss current events in the sport. For example, recently we saw in Imola, there was a press conference with Franco Colapinto because he'd recently received his seat a la Jack Doohan being kicked out. And so obviously all the press wanted to talk to him. They dedicated time. They put him in the press conference. That's Thursday. On Friday, we see two practice sessions. They are each an hour long, and they contribute to the total 3 that we see over the course of the weekend. So that's 2 on Friday and 1 on Saturday. These are the only times that the drivers have a chance to practice. It's a very unique sport in the sense that you only practice 3 hours a week, and that's if there's a race that week. And that 3 hours is very crucial. And obviously, during sprint races, that changes. I'm not going to be discussing sprint races in this episode. I will make an entirely separate episode for sprint races. They are their own thing, and I don't think we should get into them right now. So on Saturday, in the morning, they have their third and final practice session before they get into what is known as qualifying or quali. Quali is also 1 hour long. It's broken into 3 separate segments within that hour, where each of the 20 drivers are competing to set the fastest lap times. In the first session of qualifying, also known as Q1, the slowest 5 drivers are eliminated. The next 15 move on to Q2, where the slowest 5 drivers are eliminated. The next 10 move into Q3. That sets the top 10 grid, and essentially, at the end of that hour, sets the grid for the top 20. I plan to make a full episode on qualifying and all the technical terms. Practice sessions and qualifying are their own beast. They're their own thing to get into. Honestly, they're some of my favorite parts of Formula One. It's really where you get into the tech and all of the physics of it all, the engineering of it all. It's really beautiful. And so essentially, what happens after all the practice sessions and the qualifying is on Sunday, we race. And this is how you score points. So you can perform pretty shitty on practice, all 3 practice sessions. You can bomb qualifying, but if you score a point in Sunday's race, you scored the point. And that's all that matters. Points are scored on Sunday. Recently, Imola 2025, we saw Yuki Tsunoda have a horrible crash in qualifying. His car was wrecked. He had to start from the pit lane because essentially there's only a certain amount of parts or things you can change about your car from qualifying to the race day. And because his car was wrecked, he had to change all of it. And that essentially is considered unfair for the other teams who didn't get a chance to tweak their car or change anything about the setup. And so starting from the pit lane is what Yuki Tsunoda did. He started in 20th place, went to 10th place. He got that 1 point. Hey, at the end of the day, he got that point for his team. That's what matters. Did his teammate get all 25 points? Yeah, he did. But that's not the point, okay? We love Yuki. He did a great job. So within the teams of Formula One, all 10 teams, there are what would be considered to be the top 3 teams, the teams who are vying for podiums, which would be the highest amount of points, and are really challenging for drivers and constructors championships. So last year we saw Max Verstappen in the Red Bull win the Drivers' Championship, but his team got 3rd place in the Constructors' Championship. And so there isn't a necessarily 100% driver to constructor battle. That honestly is what makes the sport so great, because Max's championship was decided in Las Vegas. We still had 3 races left, and those 3 races were between McLaren and Ferrari, really bringing everything that they had to essentially secure what would have been the constructors' win, and that was won by McLaren. And so, as of right now, there are 4 teams who are really challenging for that top spot. It's Mercedes, it's Red Bull, and it's McLaren, and it's Ferrari. As of these first 6 races, Ferrari is looking to be the straggler. They're looking to be a top midfield team, honestly. But because of how well Ferrari performs and the fact that we're only a quarter of the way through the season, it's honestly too difficult to tell who's going to win. It could really be anybody's ball. But definitely the top 4 we're looking at Afterwards, we get into the midfield. That is the bottom 5 or 6 teams. As of right now, Williams is winning what is called the midfield battle, the battle for the best of the rest. It doesn't matter necessarily if your team isn't competing for first place, because prize money is prize money. You're competing to do one spot better than you did last year. You're competing to win one more dollar than you did last year, and that's probably one of the best things about the sport. It's that it's filled with drivers and teams who are inching for milliseconds, inches, centimeters of performance, because that is what makes the difference between being fifth place and being first place. It's a millisecond, it's a nanosecond, it's a blink of an eye, it's a +1 differential on your brake balance, it's all of it. And so, what really makes this sport so beautiful is the camaraderie, it's the desire to do well, and it's the motivation that is provided from the teams, from the drivers, from the fans, all of it. Formula One being a worldwide championship, being a sport that features drivers from at least 10 different countries, racing in at least 20 different countries, it creates a camaraderie and a community around the world that is just unlike any other. So to wrap up this first episode of So You Want to Get Into F1, we discussed who runs the F1 or the FIA essentially. We discussed the teams, points. We discussed how to watch F1, what happens over the course of the weekend, and what and how the teams fight for their championship. Thank you so much for tuning into this first episode of So You Want to Get Into F1. I look forward to seeing the rest of you all in my future editions and episodes. Happy racing!